All right. Pardon. So today we're going to talk about persuasive, or what are sometimes called argumentative essays. And this doesn't usually mean that you're meant to have, say, a highly emotional tone or anything like that. You're more trying to establish a point of view about something and prove that that view on it is legitimate. So, as you can see from examples, these tend to be kind of big or even hot button type issues. You've got things like, are you for or against the death penalty? Or are you for the death penalty in certain situations, but against it in others? You can obviously choose either side of an issue. Sometimes certain things are easier to make legitimate claims about than others. Police reform is another popular one, whether it's, would you like to see, the laws about apprehending suspects changed, or no-knock warrants, or the fact that the mentality that police are trained with, or the power of their firearms, or maybe you think there needs to be less of the restrictions that we place on how police can do their job. There really isn't a right or wrong answer as long as you can prove it legitimately. Politician age limit, this has been something that's been floated around recently, I believe by the former governor of South Carolina, who's running for the Republican ticket for 2024. Nikki Haley wanted there to be a cap on how old you could be and still serve. I think she put it at 75 years old, which would mean, of course, that neither Trump nor Biden could run. Obviously, that's not going to happen. But another one would be mandatory military service. There are lots of countries all over the world where you have to provide a year or two of military or civic service to the government, around the age of 18 or something like that. If anybody knows anybody from the Church of Latter-day Saints, the Mormons, a lot of times during the middle part of their college career, they'll go away on a mission trip for a year or two or something like that to help spread the word of their particular church. And lastly, prison reform, be this who goes to jail, how people are treated in jail or prison. My favorite thing to focus on in this is generally the poor conditions surrounding how we treat and feed our inmates. It's heads up, it's not very good. Having friends that have gone to jail and gone to prison, the food is both not enough in a lot of cases and extremely packed with things that are bad for you, like preservatives, sugar, salt. I mean, you all have seen me on the video. I'm not exactly trim, but at least I have the choice of eating something healthier on the outside. A lot of times people on the inside don't get that choice. So when you're trying to establish your point of view and prove that it's legitimate, you want to, first of all, pick a side to the argument and be firm on that. You can't give the other side any kind of leeway or traction or anything like that. Your job is to convince the audience to the best of your ability that your position on whatever this subject is the correct one. So, to aid you in that, act like a lawyer. Lawyers' jobs are not to tell the truth. They are to either convict someone or to prevent someone from being convicted, depending on which side of the aisle you're on. So ignore things that don't help your case while elevating things that do help your case. Avoid, and even though it asks for your opinion, you want to avoid first person. Try to avoid phrases like, in this essay, or I will prove, or it is my opinion that, whatever. That's great, but keep it in the third person. You don't want to inject too much of yourself into this, because then it comes off ranty, like you're just trying to inflict your beliefs on someone else. Speak of it in the general we, as in like many readers might notice, or some people feel, things like that. You want to have a minimum of 3 supporting claims. All right, so let's go back to the prison reform thing and my obsession with how inmates are fed, or how prisoners are fed. So going to a particular website, I think it's called the Marshall Project, they have lots of articles on there that publicize sort of what the actual diets are of a lot of inmates. So after reading a bunch of those articles, I discovered that basically one of 2 things are happening, and sometimes both. You're either getting not healthy food, but healthier food, but generally speaking, not getting enough of it. Like, for example, lunch for the majority of the prison population some days might be a couple of bologna sandwiches with nothing on them and a couple of hard-boiled eggs or something like that. Whereas in a different part of the country, you might have quite a lot of food, but most of it is laden with sugar, preservatives, and a lot of saturated fat. So you might get a thing of like kind of like a Salisbury steak or meatloaf or something like that, and then you might get like fruit cobbler or fruit salad or something like that. Then you might get like a cookie or a brownie and a bag of chips or something, which isn't terrible if it's every once in a while and you're a kid on a field trip, but every single day you're talking about eating much, much more than the people can burn off inside the prison, unless they have sort of a 50 cent, the wrapper, not the denomination of coin, prison workout routine sort of a thing. I mean, most Americans, if you are over the age of 30, 35, you're talking about only needing to ingest 1,500 to 2,500 calories, and these guys and women who have a much more sedentary lifestyle because they just either can't leave their cells or because they have limited opportunities to exercise or whatever it might be, are ingesting far more than what people on the outside are. And so you have this yo-yo effect where people are either losing weight in prison or coming out having gained a tremendous amount of weight in prison. And then the other one might be to reestablish jobs, so that there's some kind of training so that when people get out of prison or get out of jail, they can have some kind of skill, because largely the preparation is done by not actually cooking things, but portioning them and reheating them in like steam ovens or regular ovens or things like that. So it's not exactly the same as being able to go out and work as a short order cook or something like that when you're used to just filling containers. So those might be 3 supporting things I would use. And then first and lastly, and most important, be specific. Don't be wishy-washy about your topic. Don't give the other side any credit or let up on them. The other thing that you can kind of do here is you can take and shine a spotlight. If any of you have seen the logical fallacies video, the straw man making inept comparisons, is actually something that can work towards your favor here. So let's say you know that there's a point that the opposing argument might not make because it could seem weak, or they don't have enough to really expound upon it, or perhaps it's not really that legitimate of a point. Well, if you state that before the other side does, so in your own work, if you make an argument for the other side, but then point out how flawed that argument is, that can also be known as a straw man argument, where you're setting up an argument not for the benefit of the opposite opinion of what you're writing about, but to prove how faulty it is. So there are a couple different ways you can go about establishing claims, but the best way is to make sure that you're choosing claims or points of view that are provable, that are understandable, and that people could relate to. So when it comes to the actual structure, you want to, right off the bat in your introduction, state your position on whatever this is. Say, without using the word I, that essentially you feel this way about blank subject. And then the rest of your paper needs to reflect that. So your first, second, and third claims should point back to whatever you think. So if you think that we need a political age limit for federal office in the United States, say that, the maximum age someone should be allowed to be elected and still serve as a politician in this country should be 75 or 70 or 80 or 50 or whatever you think it should be. Then use the next few paragraphs to explain why that claim makes sense, and then finally restate what you initially said. Explain why, one more time, everything that you've listed adds up to the audience should be on your side regarding this particular issue, whatever it is. Okay? So, again, pick a side, be firm, act like a lawyer, avoid the first person, minimum of 3 claims that support your argument, and be specific. These are going to deal, for the most part, with issues that are difficult for most people to reconcile. So choose your side and defend it. All right, everybody. Those are persuasive and argumentative essays, and the next video will be on analytical essays.